This program is supported by the Dorothy Cheung Memorial Fund. The Dorothy Cheung Memorial Fund was established through the generous donation of NTU Associate Professor Chung in memory of his wife Dorothy. Professor Chung entrusted a significant portion of his savings to the NTU community to carry on in perpetuity the celebration of the arts and the nurturing and transforming of NTU students in and through their academic and cultural pursuits.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our final session of the Arts Community Open Talk. So this is a series where we talk to different creators and artists from different disciplines to understand their process and journey so far. So this is a live chat, so if at any time you have any questions for our guests, just plonk them into the chat box and we'll try to get to them at the end of the session. So today we have two very, very interesting guests. Both, I would say, have very distinctive styles of their own. So it'll be very fun to talk to them about how they landed there or sort of how they sort of puff towards finding that style for themselves. So first up is Hui Er over here. So she's the co-creative lead of Not Safe for TV, NSF TV, an online visual magazine for experimental video content. I always stumble at this part, I don't know why. Okay. But anyway, so far, their content have covered topics such as class differences, teenage pregnancy, domestic violence, underground creative communities, and a lot more on the channel themselves. And alongside NSF TV, Hui also explores alternative perspectives and progresses the boundaries of filmmaking in the regional landscape. So one thing I found very interesting in her bio was she believes that experiencing stories have the power to effect social change and finds purpose in unraveling the human condition with her audience. So we're going to go talk about that quite deeply today. So welcome here. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
How are you feeling right now?
I'm a bit nervous, but okay. I think we'll be fine.
Do you want to introduce yourself in your own words? Or
no, I think you did a very good job actually. She always does a very good job of like introducing us, like a little spiel.
I stalk people before I interview them, so I'm a Scorpio.
Oh, I did not know that.
Now you know. Now everybody knows. Yeah. Okay, so a bit more about NSF TV, right? So for people who don't know about it, could you explain like what exactly is NSF TV as a channel?
So essentially, we are an online social media platform, and what we aim to do is to create content that speaks for issues that are a bit unseen and unheard. Not only issues, but people. So things that are a bit more unseen and unheard. Alternative voices as well, alternative perspectives, and we want to do it in a way that like what you mentioned, pushes the boundaries of not only filmmaking, but what is available online right now. Yeah, it's essentially what we do. Yeah.
That's nice. And it was started by you and a couple of friends, right? So how and when did you guys decide to do something like that?
So basically, we are a bunch of fresh grads. So the story started with us being a bunch of fresh grads. And it's quite funny because we went to this company called the Hummingbird Co. And we had an idea to do a web series which was called One Take. So it's essentially 9 episodic. It's a 9 episodic web series, and each of them is done in a single take. And each of them, even though it's a narrative series, managed to touch on a social issue that we felt was reflected in our friends and ourselves. And that was the entire concept. And we went to the Hummingbird Co. And essentially they said, oh, we actually have a platform called Not Safe for TV. And would you guys like to hit it? And we were like, sure, why not? And so that happened. And I think how the channel came about was really, I mean, for any fresh grad and for any young person, you're given a platform. And for us, I mean, not many people get that chance or the opportunity to have the complete creative freedom to helm like a platform on your own. Yeah. So at the heart of it, we really were saying, if you're a platform, why not we use it for good lah? And that's why the main tenet of what we do is really to talk about, to give voice to, the unseen and unheard. Yeah.
So One Take, was that conceptualized because you felt like there wasn't really stories that sort of reflected your life at that point?
I think, yeah, a bit of that. I feel like there wasn't like a very distinct, like, okay, we're going to do a story that reflected us. But I think it was really like it was almost like a subconscious thing. I realized actually when we kept like conceptualizing content, because I think growing up you look at whatever is available in mainstream media, whatever is available online, and then you start realizing things like that. I don't see myself in that, and I don't face that problem. My friend doesn't face that problem. It's entertaining. It's very entertaining. But
who wrote that? Where did that come from?
Yeah, there's no representation, I think, and I think it was a very subconscious thing. Yeah, and I think that's how it came about. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of value in have people seeing themselves represented in media. Yeah,
definitely, because I think media is such an important role in helping people understand also what they're going through and to help people talk about what they're going through. So I do think there's a lot of merit in what you guys are doing.
It's about like it feels almost like it's like a validation of like this lived experience. Yeah, so I think
yeah, you're not alone, right?
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah, exactly.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
especially since our mainstream media is a bit how do I say it?
It's great. It's great.
It's great, but it's also not very diverse. But it's great. But okay, so how did One Take do as the first series from NSF TV?
When we first started, we didn't have any expectations. It was really like, okay, let's put it out there and see what happens. And then we were very, very overwhelmed by the support. I think we talked about it previously in like the podcast that we got to do with you guys, that people were so invested in the characters, and that was the first sign that we were like, oh my goodness, like actually people are responding to this narrative. And the second thing was that they were connecting to these characters and things that they were going through on a very emotional level, and that sparked a lot of conversations about these issues that we wanted to highlight. Yeah, so that was very exciting for us lah, and I think it was a very good indication that okay, maybe we're onto something. Yeah,
and it definitely motivated you to go through further.
Yeah.
So when I asked you for your bio, and there was this part in it that says experiencing stories have the power to effect social change, right? Like, could you unpack that a little bit? Like, what is your belief behind that?
I think so I, as a creative, like I started out even in school with like theatre studies, and I think it really started from there lah, because a lot of the questions that they were asking, that they were teaching us and me, was a lot like what are you trying to do with this piece of work? What are you trying to say? And I think even like the shows that I was consuming, I really appreciated it when you could tell that the work wasn't just meant for any like indulgent artistic purposes, that it was really there to affect the audience and talk about something that it's really empowering the audience to be able to do something to do good in in society and life. Yeah, so, and I personally have really been going through that a lot lah, so I thought that was just rambling at this point.
No. So you're basically saying that the core of what all of your work is to put on something that's contemplative, in a sense, that or sort of provokes a certain type of thought.
Because I think like when we talk about social change or even changing perspectives or offering a perspective to someone else, like it's very easy to give people like an article or to give people information and statistics and data, but I think more than that, for people to really kind of like understand and empathize that this is a real world like issue, right, that they need to think about, that is important. I think that stories is like a very key part of like getting people to empathize and then really take action from there. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. So how did you land on video format as that medium that you're sort of working with? Especially from a theatre background, like how did you sort of make that transition?
It was very like accidental. It was like a really like okay, like here I find myself here. But I think what's super exciting is that with like online media, right, not only just film, but with online media, the interactivity and the engagement is so powerful because conversations can be started just like that. You're essentially putting out something out there, and anybody can like respond. And with all the tools that are available right now in like on all the platforms, I think what's super exciting is that you really, when we talk about giving voice to the unseen and unheard, that's really such a great platform. Like even like very small things like reposting something or like there's like the Ask Me Anything in IGS and then getting to repost it. It sounds very like small but and insignificant, but when you really harness the power of that engagement and that tool, you really get to create something lah. And we talked about it in the podcast also, but like we really tried to harness that in one of the stories that we were telling also, called Long Story Short, where we literally wrote videos or short films based on audience responses. Yeah, so that was quite fun.
Yeah, because I'm curious, because did you guys start the channel planning for it to have such a big social presence? Because NSF TV is almost like, I feel like it almost exists quite solely on IG, Instagram. You know, there's a lot of interaction, there's a lot of comments, a lot of the releases are there, a lot of like the instantaneous reception you guys get from there. So like, was that the plan all along, or did you guys sort of evolve over time when you realize, hey, actually this platform is something that we can add on?
I think it was never like okay, we are only going to focus IG, Facebook. It was really like we're just going to post. It's a bit accidental, but I think because at that point in time, me, Ben and Jarrell, like those two platforms were the ones we were on the most. So naturally, like, you know, but I think it also reflects like the age group that we are trying to talk to as well, which is like, you know, the youth, us included.
Youth is a very big
us
age
included,
group.
yeah. So like, I think it's good lah that, like, you know, it's really young people making content for young people. Yeah.
So far, would you say that your work has sort of affected that social change that you wanted to do? It's a big question.
Yeah,
okay, in any
question.
sense, or like even in conversations or comments that you've seen people interacting with each other, etc. Because I think social change is in itself a very ambiguous and big word, right? So your own meaning of that, like, do you think you've sort of landed on that so far?
I've always felt like it's I think it's very hard to think that to say that like a video can change someone's like world, or like, you know, and the next day they're gonna like, you know, make a big change to their lives. But I find like one of the most powerful things that I've experienced also when I consume art or media or stories is that it makes you think, it plants a seed, it makes you think about this issue that has maybe just, you know, been at like, it's just around you, and I think that seed is important. Yeah. So in terms of reception, I think the most encouraging thing is when you see comments and people kind of like debating in that section. And the really cool part is that especially when it's done so respectfully, when people are debating respectfully, usually they will come to like a conclusion, and it's very respectful and it's very empathetic, and I think that's very encouraging to see lah. It's really like, this is the topic, and then like, you know, people really get to talk and debate about it, so that's really fun.
That's nice. Do you think in some ways it's the way the community is being built, like the NSF TV community is so respectful, is also because of the way you depict the different topics?
I think definitely there's a level of respect when we tell those stories. I think it's also about creating like a safe space in the community. Like, that's really important. Yeah.
So actually on that, because your topics are very, very diverse, right? It really ranges from something that could be very personal to you to something that you've never lived through, right? So how do you ensure that it's always kept authentic and it's always kept real to the people who've gone through that story itself? So basically I went for like a show when I was like 15, and then someone asked the exact same question to the playwright. So I went to this theatre production by The Necessary Stage, and if you guys know them, they devise a lot of works that also there are a lot of social issues that they discuss, Singapore social issues. And someone asked the exact same questions: you've never lived through this, how are you writing these stories? And he just said, like, research. I do a lot of research. And I think that I really took that and like ran with it. So when we work on projects that I personally like, I cannot access, or it's something that I don't know anything about, research, like right from the institutional level where we talk to where I email to professors and listen to the big picture, and then right down to like the little things where you interview profiles who have been through that. And then the cool part is actually when you start researching, you realize that at the heart of it, right, there's a lot you can empathize with, and that's kind of where the entry point is lah. The human conditions.
Yeah. So you know, you erase all the big picture and like all the differences. There's always this one thing that you'll be able to like find connection with and access. Oh,
that's so nice. That's so nice that it's a process that's all learned over time.
Yeah, and I think the really cool thing is that me as a creative, and I think I speak for the creatives in NSF TV as well, like we don't know like all the answers, and we don't know like when we talk about a topic, right? You don't know one lah.
Yeah.
And the really exciting thing is that we are also exploring it and learning it for the first time with our audiences also. Yeah. And like I've seen it like how it can affect people who like make work and they get so invested into it, and you realize like this is their first time talking about this issue, and yeah, it's quite powerful to see lah. Yeah.
Was there any topic that you ever felt uncomfortable doing?
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Let me think. No, I'm quite okay. Yeah, but I've watched like people who like when, for example, they are assigned this project and like they have never talked about this before. It's completely out of their radar. And then when they start researching, when they start talking to like the profiles, and they see the urgency of the matter, and they get a lot more aware and engaged, and it's very exciting to see that change in people. So.
Yeah. Which is really nice in your process, because you don't just do everything yourself. Like you also bring different filmmakers to sort of explore different stories, and you almost give them time to go through that journey themselves. Yeah, I think that's very reflective in the work that all of you have. It's always very considered. It's very, very thoughtful. It never feels rushed. Because I think when you talk about social issues, especially in digital space now, it can feel easily very exploitative.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the case for you guys. So I feel like this explains a lot. What's the timeline like usually? Like how long do you guys usually spend on that?
Way too long lah. Like from like a producer brain, I'm just like way too long. But so I think moving forward, right, there's really a lot of talk about how we can create content that is being produced at a sustainable level. Yeah, so it's really like seeing what you have and then what can you do with it, instead of trying to really like
finding a sweet spot.
Yeah,
that's so hard though.
It is. It's super hard. Good challenge for the year.
I hope you find that. So,
God, thank you.
do you feel like the topics that you as a channel that you choose to embark on, right, has evolved over time? Like has grown in any way that was sort of unexpected, or like you just went overflow the years? What am I talking about? But yeah.
Like evolve. Like, definitely. Yeah. I think. Yeah, even when you ask the question about like topics that we covered, like we really do see like the involvement where it starts with us and then you start bringing it bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, you start looking outwards even more. Yeah, so I think in that sense, like, if that answers your question.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Do you think that also comes from understanding the influence of the channel that the channel has, and then you realize, oh, actually, it's no longer just a passion project of things I want to do, but it's also about understanding what people are talking about right now.
Yeah. I think like a lot of the inspiration comes from the profiles that we interview and the people that we work with. Yeah. So I think that really reflects in the kind of work that we choose to put out. Yeah.
What's your favourite piece of work so far? It's like choosing your favourite child, but like one that you feel you've learned the most from it, or you feel has made the most impact as from a channel's perspective.
Let me think. Favorite piece of work? I don't think I have like a favorite piece of work, but there's a definitive piece that we did that I think gave me a lot of purpose, that reminded me of like why I want to do this in the first place. So I basically during when COVID first started, right? Now it's so easy to talk about it, like COVID. But sorry,
COVID is so lame.
It's so easy to talk about. But when it first started, it was very scary, right? And I think there was a lot. There were a lot of like cases of people who have passed away from COVID and their loved ones not being able to be there to kind of like say goodbye. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that like if you have to see your loved one through like a glass window, or that you cannot even touch the person, and that I really couldn't wrap my head around it. And so we decided to interview 3 profiles, regional, like as in across the world, like one from Philippines, one from the UK, one from Singapore, and who have been through this, who have had their loved ones pass away from COVID, and what it was like for them, that grieving process. And I think that really kind of like reminded me why I decided to do this in the first place, because I went in there expecting so much like grief and sadness, right? And to it like I'm already so like and then I came out of it feeling like they had so much hope, and I asked them, what do you want to do with what do you want to say to the video? And they just said like one of the profiles said, I don't want my death to be in vain. So I want to be able to tell people that this is a real thing, and to take this seriously, and like that. Yeah, I think that really changed.
Oh, that's so.
Yeah.
Oh, that must be quite a journey for you.
Yeah. So that piece really kind of like gave me a lot of purpose, like, I think. Yeah.
Which is interesting, because I feel like your process of understanding all of these topics and profiles is not just about knowing more about the topic itself, but it's almost unlearning your personal judgment on it.
Yeah, exactly. So like as a creative, you really feel like you're going on this journey with the audience. Yeah. So when we craft the stories, or when we craft the scripts, right, or even like you really you think about how you were like before you started on the project, and you imagine that people are just like that, and it's really true. And then you really dissect it with the audience. So that's very fun, because you're going on that journey with them also. Yeah.
And usually when you guys do a web series, is that how it evolves over time, or do you guys write like the whole script all the way?
For the narratives, is it? Yeah, for the narratives, definitely we write the script from the start. But also same thing, like a lot of research, a lot of like a lot of research first, and then write the script, and then multiple changes, and then
as usual,
yeah.
Any field.
Yes, and then so that's usually what we do.
Okay, how has your journey been as a storyteller? I know you don't like to be called a filmmaker. So as a storyteller, like, how has that been for you since the start? So about 2-3 years ago, right? Yeah, from fresh out of school to what you are today. How has that been?
So like one of my bosses, if he's watching, and like, so he actually, one of the comments he made at the start, right, was how he always sees like young creatives, they always start with telling their own stories, and then it takes them, I can't remember what's the number he said, it takes them to know how many, like, he quoted somebody lah, not his own words. So
I'll fact check this later.
Yeah, he said like, it always starts with yourself, and then after don't know how many projects, right, you start telling other people's stories. And like, I think I can really I can really see that lah. Like, not sure if that answers the question.
No, it's like personal growth basically.
Yeah,
I've realized.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anyone in Singapore that you also feel has been prolific in using their medium for social change in that sense?
So many. I think there are so many online channels right now that are talking about representation, that are moving in that direction of talking about issues lah. Yeah, our good friends at Our Grandfather Story. Yeah, Rise Media. Yeah. Is it?
No.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, definitely it does. So, for people who want to step into this field, I guess, whether it's in storytelling, whether it's online media, or telling stories for social changes, like, do you have any advice for them, or one thing you wish you knew before you started everything?
I think that okay. I think like we always come in with like the intention of like wanting to do this, right? And it's always from a very good place. No matter who you are, if the fact that you want to join something like that, it means that you're coming from a very good place, really. And it's very easy to be so emotionally invested into something, and to just like keep going at it, right? But then I think that there's not enough importance placed on kind of taking a step back and looking after yourself also, so that when you look at a story, you can tell it in a very respectful and like empathetic manner. Yeah, and that we literally just did an interview the other day with that's for a video that's coming out like next week, and one of the profiles said something that I think I will always remember. So we asked him a question: what do you feel about people asking very offensive questions towards you? And how do you negotiate that kind of like questions? And to be honest, I feel like when I asked it, I was asking it like for myself also, because I didn't know how to like, you know,
Deflect.
yeah, I was like asking him like, you know, how do you handle these kind of situations? And then he said that sometimes you really do have to protect yourself also. Yeah, if you need to, if you don't, you can really do the work and you can and do all your research and all the things that you need, but you need to take care of yourself also. Yeah, it sounds so like lame, right? Like take care of yourself. Like what kind of advice is that? Go and take care of yourself.
No, I think that's something that actually doesn't get talked about enough, because so much of being a creative is giving yourself not just as a work perspective, but as a lot of your personal energy and personal investment into it as well. So I think that learning when to draw the boundary to go, I do need some rest to see my work better, or I need some distance from it, which it's quite hard to really quantify in a way, because everyone does that differently. So I think actually it's something that we need to talk about.
Yeah, the distance really, like when you come back to the work, right, it really gives you a different perspective, because you can't talk about life if you're not living, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like
famous last words.
Yeah, so like you really need
Did you ever burn out from doing all this?
Yeah, definitely. I think circuit breaker was like a really good like reset to just be like, you know, look at your priorities and so I think doing that, and I think that period was really like a good period for me to kind of really be like, I can't do work if I'm not in like a good like headspace. Like need to stop glorifying the whole like what's that word, the
struggling
like,
artist.
Not there, and the like the angry, like the tortured artist. You know, like really need to stop glorifying that. Yeah.
Forever tormented by your work.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's so true though. Yeah. Like, okay, so what's next for NSF TV? Like, what do you guys have planned, or even for yourself? What's your next path of growth?
I see for the channel first, like easier. So, like I think we're very excited to kind of create content on a more sustainable level. So we definitely right now a lot of our series are kind of like coming out like as surprises. It's like boop, boop, boop.
Yeah, I do realize it's no longer
so now we're gonna try and create like a consistency with what we do, because we really want to like continue to like engage in that conversation with people. It shouldn't just be like a, you know, so that will be something we're looking towards doing lah. For myself, I think what we just talked about, like, you know, prioritizing and then like living life so that, you know, you can talk about life.
Which is a bit harder to understand now because we can't like travel and all of that.
Yeah,
so
no, but it's really
it's
just
more
about
deliberate.
Yeah, but it's like really the small things, like really just family, my dog.
How's your dog? On that dog. It's an inside joke, but Hui Er loves talking about her dog.
Yeah,
it's dedicated to the NSF TV intern. She's got a very cute dog. Okay, so outside of work or outside of like online media content or whatever, right? What do you usually consume to just keep that balance in check for yourself?
Outside of media, then books. Yeah, I really, really love reading because I think media and like film is a very like visual kind of, so I love reading. I think like, I love sleep.
It's very important.
I love sleep.
Okay.
I don't know. I need to continue.
No need. Okay. But any last words you want before we wrap up for this session?
I'm good.
You're good? Yeah. Okay. Anything you want them to look out for on your channel?
Just I hope people continue to watch and like enjoy.
Enjoy, engage, be a part of the conversations that they're trying to incite. So thank you, Hui Er, for your time.
You.
So we're going to take a little short break, but in between you're actually going to see their latest work for the International Women's Day. So actually you can talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to watch something from Untitled Children because Deon Phua, who is one of the founders of Untitled Children, is coming up next. So do you want to talk a bit about that IWD work?
I think just enjoy.
Okay, watch it. Let us know what you think. It's their latest work that got published online. So enjoy. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back in a short while.
Oh, hi, Mom.
Hi. Oh, your skirt so short.
I'm only wearing safety short. Thank you. god. Have you seen this?
Yeah, so many cases now.
Name one unit that haven't kena sexual harassment case. Long.
Oh well. Sorry, can I get out? Guys, I'm at a cafe and then this guy is pointing his phone at me.
What?
I don't know, is it I'm overthinking?
Walk past and check.
He was just playing Pokemon Go.
Bye. You scared me, babe.
Sorry, I overreacted.
Just a piece of mind, is that too much to ask for? I don't care for the petty things, just reminded of your energy that you bring to the table. I feel you. We sat in silence, but I felt that too. But you made it harder than it should be, so I work twice as hard and I hope it's meant to be. Night drives.
This program is supported by the Dorothy Cheung Memorial Fund. The Dorothy Cheung Memorial Fund was established through the generous donation of NTU Associate Professor Chung in memory of his wife Dorothy. Professor Chung entrusted a significant portion of his savings to the NTU community to carry on in perpetuity the celebration of the arts and the nurturing and transforming of NTU students in and through their academic and cultural pursuits. What do you say? Hello everyone, welcome to the Arts Community Open Talk. My name is Daniel, I am the editor at Singapore Community Radio. In this series, we are going to have conversations with artists and creators across different disciplines about their journey and processes. This is a live chat, so if you have any burning questions for our guests, plonk them into the Twitch chat and we'll get to them when we have time towards the end. For anyone who's watching on Facebook, you can go over to twitch.tv/SG Community Radio to come and join the live chat. So we have someone with us today. We have Deon Phua. Hey Deon.
Hi.
Deon is one of the founders of Tell Your Children, which is a cultural and creative studio based in Singapore since 2014. The group has worked with prominent names such as Vans, Prada, Netflix, and Starbucks, along with cultural collaborations across the globe, from Singaporean indie music to American hip-hop. Deon was one of, if not the first, to lay the groundwork for the cultural demand of vintage fashion in Singapore with Deft Threads, establishing the business in 2017. On the side, Deon has pursued multidisciplinary creative projects, both domestic and global, and lectures part-time at Temasek Polytechnic School of Design in Singapore. And when he's not doing all of that, he spins 90s hip-hop records at events. Today we'll be talking about finding a style as a creative and navigating through obstacles for creatives in Singapore. Welcome, Deon, and first of all, I'm really tired after talking about that. Before we even get to your work, I need to know, like, how do you even find the time for everything that I just said?
I mean, I don't really have time to do a lot of like hobby stuff.
Right.
So I always joke with my friends that I don't really have like, you know, I don't game. I don't.
Right.
So I think
you're not one of those guys who carries like a big fish or so, like,
no,
right?
no. And sell them on Facebook.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, but I think for me my time is just split between work, between like housework. Oh my god. Like, since getting a house, like,
right,
so much to do.
So how long has that been so far? How long have you like settled into the new house?
I moved in September last year.
Okay.
So it's been about 7 months, I think.
Right. And we were talking earlier, you're adopting a new cat as well, right?
Yes. I think it's like, once you have one cat, right, then you kind of like want a cat to keep the other cat company.
Yes, of course. Right.
So we are picking him up.
So like the cat that you've had for the past few months, and I'm sorry the topic's based on cats right now, but you have no choice. I'm guessing you spent a lot of time at home also working, and like, how do you manage, like, you know, attending to your cat's needs and attention as well? Because cats can be very needy.
My cat is chill.
Okay.
He's starting to get more needy, but you know, he's from the streets, so he doesn't really like.
I see. He's from the streets.
Yeah, he's from the streets. We picked him up.
Nice.
half dead.
Right, half dead. How?
Yeah. Like, he was like starving and
right.
He was like basically gonna die.
Yeah.
So we picked him up. We rescued him, and then after like a year, he became like this.
And you were mentioning earlier as well that like the next cat that you're getting is a black cat, and this is kind of based off a fact which I can believe that like black cats generally are not like the first option for a lot of people.
Yeah. So I think like in Asia at least, like even my parents, like their generation, they all think that black cats are superstitious. So you know, when we're looking through like adoption websites, like black cats are always the ones that get adopted the last.
Right.
So we want to change that. There's also like this black cat awareness movement.
Yeah.
Like a global thing.
Oh, it's a global thing, right?
Yeah.
So there are other people in Singapore as well who are like just kind of like running the initiative.
I think so,
Right.
Yeah. So
If not, you guys are the first lah.
maybe. But the black cats are like, super cute.
Right. Okay. So I think today what we're going to talk about at least is just about like finding your style and just finding your identity as a creative. But I think, you know, looking from everything that you've done over the years, and I guess like over the decade, I want to kind of wind it back to like when you were a teenager and like when you were first kind of starting it out. So could you tell me about like what kickstarted like your interests and your eventual career in design?
I think I was always quite interested in the arts. You know, like since like primary, secondary school, I'll be always drawing everywhere. The textbooks, you know, all the characters would be like drawing devil horns. And,
right. Were you one of those guys who drew like, you know, that S thing that everyone used to draw last time?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah,
so the only ones who drew were the posers.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But basically that's how I started. And I think I was quite lucky in the sense that when I was young, my parents like sent me for like drawing competitions. So those at the CC, you know, draw Sing a Lion in your own interpretation. So I think and I think they were quite supportive, like sending me to like calligraphy lessons, even drawing like manga lessons. So I've always had quite a lot of interest in visual arts, and I knew from a young age that like this is something that I really want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like I guess like your parents nurturing that interest really helped a lot, and I guess it was quite crucial also.
Yeah, for sure.
So you are part of a generation that like grew up with the internet, and like that cultural exposure was fairly big for you. And I think we'll talk about it later about how like, you know, even hip hop, you know, as music, as a culture itself, like that was very influential for you. But was there anything going on in Singapore at the time that was like very inspirational for you?
I think there were like a few exhibitions here and there, but there wasn't really anything super inspiring. That's why I think for us, we at least my creatives in my age, I think we used to look out a lot to like the West and things that are going on. I think back then when we started, like street art was kind of like the in thing, like street art, street culture and everything. So we were looking to like graffiti artists overseas and everything. So I don't think there was much in Singapore that was really inspiring.
Also by the fact that like, graffiti is really restricted here, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a whole different.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I guess like jumping from that to the genesis of like Tell Your Children then, which is the main studio that you're running out with other artists and creatives also. So like, tell us about the start of the studio and like what prompted the idea to start it.
I mean, I think we were all we were in the same class in poly, so we were all studying visual communications, and we were all majoring in illustration. So I think the idea started when me and Russell, we were quite close. We had the same interest in streetwear, in street art, and etc. So we tried to do like a streetwear label back in school. We called it Thunder Eskimo.
Okay.
But I didn't really go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, I thought the name was quite cool.
Yeah.
But the idea was always to work together and try to do some things together. And I think when I was in the army just kind of like reinforced the idea that I didn't want to come and work for someone else, because it was just like the hierarchy.
And like just trying to imagine yourself in like a similar bureaucratic position or so. Like once you get rid of like the army uniform, you're like,
So the whole idea was like, you know what? Let's just come together. Let's just try to do some things that people can't. Like one person can't do themselves.
Yeah.
And I think back then the industry was quite competitive. So like even in our class, my class was like, not being biased, but it was like really, really like, I think one of the best classes TP ever had.
Okay.
So you had like guys who specialize in like American style comics. You had like people specializing in like manga comics. It's like so many, and they're so good, and it was quite competitive. Everyone was trying to get the next big job.
So is that also kind of like inspirational for you to kind of know that like you're in the same league with all these other people who are also quite like, they're really good at what they do.
Like the top guy in my class got like a scholarship at Pasadena. Like
wow.
Yeah. So he's there doing like concept art, and it's crazy. So I think the idea was just kind of like to come together to work and help each other out, like push each other's art. So when we first started TYC, it was a lot of like coming together at Starbucks, drawing together, like Instagramming it, because back then like, Instagram was just happening. I would be like in my bunk, my army bunk, like drawing and like posting it like after lights out.
Right.
Yeah, just to get like the engagement at 11, 12 p.m.
So while you're in NS, you still had kind of like a one-track mind. Everything was still like,
I was just like, I'm just going to try to use my time in NS as like much as possible. So we started TYC when most of us were still in the army. So I was booking out, doing mural jobs and booking back to camp. So it's like that was like the hustle back then.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you manage that, man? Like,
I think I was just lucky to land in a job that didn't require me to stay in.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was an officer as well.
I see.
So that was like I still had a bit of leeway. I still got shit from my superiors, but at least I could book out and I didn't have to like really answer.
But you also had to spend that 9 months to train to be an officer, and I'm sure that was like that
was my lowest point for sure. Yeah.
I see.
I think there was one time I cried.
Okay.
Because I basically I lost like an equipment.
Okay.
And I had to stay in over Christmas and New Year's.
What?
So that was like super painful.
Yeah.
Shit, yeah.
I like anyone in NS ready to stay over when everyone else gets to go when it's a holiday is one thing, but like Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah. So like I was in OCS, so like each of our wings, like the company wings, then at 12 a.m. we kind of like blasted the PA system like Happy New Year. Like, we were stuck there.
Just make the most of like the really crappy situation that you have.
Yeah. So that was my low period, but yeah.
Okay. So I think like when for like a project like this to work, like finding the right partners, it's really crucial. How was like the internal coordination like once you figured out this is going to be Tell Your Children, this is everyone is going to be involved, and this is going to be like a thing for you guys? Like was it a case of like aligning goals early on, or were you guys like going to figure things out along the way?
Yeah. I think there was a lot of aligning that had to be done. Like even before we came together, I knew all of them separately, but some of them didn't even know each other.
I see.
Yeah, so it was like when we all met, Russell is like he knows Kevin by his appearance, but doesn't know him. Right. So it's like, what's happening? So I think it was a lot.
And I think now the opposite is true, where a lot of people know Kevin by his voice, but they don't know how he looks like.
Yeah. Shout out Cosmic Children.
Shout out to Cosmic Children. Yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of aligning, and I think we did spend quite a lot of time like just hashing out like the goals, like what we wanted to achieve, and but I think having said that, a lot of us fell into our roles quite organically.
Okay.
So after a while when we started to do things like, someone needs to be the account manager, someone needs to handle clients, someone needs to handle finance, someone needs to, and for creatives trying to run the creative direction, it's just shit. So we allocated like, okay, Lydia, Russell, you guys handle this. So it's all of like learning, like there's like a learning journey. Yeah. And we didn't even have any like super like corporate work experience because we're all like part-timing, freelancing when I was still in the army, and then like once everyone got out of the army, we just started this full time.
And a lot of those skills is something that people will learn if they're taking a very specific course as well. So, and you guys were in the art and design field. So this is not something you were exposed to early on. This is something you just have to like kind of figure out along the way.
Like invoicing, like who knows? Like, they don't teach you that in school. You know, that's what.
As long as you freelance in Singapore, you have to learn that, right?
Invoicing, like putting in the clauses to make sure. And we got burned like sometimes when we first started. So as we learn, we like look at more established companies' clauses. Our contracts are getting longer and longer and longer.
I see, but that also kind of cost you guys along the way.
We learn, you know.
So we have before we carry on with like the questions that we have, like we do have a question from the NTU Arts Festival organizers themselves. Right. They ask, any advice for those who want to pursue the arts but do not have supportive parents like yours?
I think that's. I feel like you gotta. Well, let me think.
Sure, no problem.
Because I don't want to come from like a point of like, since I had supportive parents.
So privileged, right? Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think it's tough, definitely, when you have supportive parents. But I think like a lot of things you gotta, or at least try to convince them. So for me, like my parents weren't like, they were supportive of me like drawing. I think more of like a hobby. You know, but I don't think they kind of like saw it as a viable like career choice. So when we started TYC, like they weren't. I mean, they had their reservations about it.
Right.
And you know, I think there was one time when we appeared in the news. Then they were like, their perception changed. It like this actually.
It's almost the kind of story that every creative has, or any kind of creative in Singapore that has a form of success, where you end up in a newspaper, you end up with some media coverage, and then like the parents kind of change their tune.
Yeah. But I mean, I would say like, and this is my opinion, but I think if you are under a certain age, maybe like you can't go against your parents that much. But past a certain age, you know, you can decide for yourself if it's 18 or 21. I think it's like if they're not being supportive, then you got to figure out your own way, right?
Like because you need to think about what's best for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if it means moving out with a friend and like just doing your own and focusing on your stuff. I mean, everyone has their own way. You know, if it's like locking yourself. I don't know how unsupportive they are. Correct. Like if they're like too controlling, maybe it's just about like finding time.
It's another problem altogether. Yeah, for a therapist.
So I mean, everyone has their way. I think I don't think there's like one set path for everyone.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think like if anything, for a lot of parents also, like when they do react that way, where they don't see that hobby as becoming a career, it's mainly because they feel like they're looking out for you. So and it also reflects like the larger point that these industries are not fully supported and also established as other kinds of industries that are like perhaps like non-creative. So you know, again, like to me, it's like to add to your point also, that like if you're at a certain age where you're younger, where you gotta listen to your parents, and then you just gotta find ways to kind of nurture it in your own time. But you will reach a point where like you need to look out for yourself and really think about what do you want to do. So so alongside your work as a creative, and like you were mentioning like the groundwork to make it happen for like Tell Your Children. So this is you kind of putting on your big boy pants lah, you know, like to do everything. You were mentioning that for like some, like you had to, like it was a progressive time of adding one term after the other as well. But was there a lesson that you picked up early on that really helped you in terms of like running the company?
I would say to always, as indeed, it's kind of like an advice, right? If people they want to do their own thing. I think it's always about like making sure that you are covered first before committing. I think so. Something that we learned before is that we committed first before like the client kind of like approved. But because we were young and we were like, and it was like a tight timeline. So we were like, no, we need to commit now. If not, this project won't go through. So we committed first. So we put in money to make like, it was basically like a production thing. And then like we didn't hear back from the client like 1 week, 2 weeks, then they cancelled it.
I see.
And they were like, but we really like spent the money. And it was just like a whole like cluster. I don't know if I can say that. But I think one of the things is basically where we learn to like always get it like black and white, make sure that they confirm before we kind of like go in all out. That's something that we learned.
Saves a lot of time and resources as well.
and just miscomms and
of course. So now that like over the years, like you've had like a substantial amount of like commercial projects and also personal projects under Tell Your Children, like have you become more selective in like where your energy and work is spent?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think so this is something that I learned from I was listening to this business podcast. I think it was like these 3 Fs.
Yeah.
For every creative to like kind of like see if it's a project worth doing. So I think the first F is like fame.
Okay.
So if they can get you fame, like if it can get you like exposure and stuff like that, that's one F. Fortune, like if it gets you money, and like fun.
Okay.
So I think the main rule of thumb is to, whenever a new project comes in, make sure that it checks off at least 2 Fs.
Okay.
So if it's fun and fortune, like but there's no fame, like sure, because it's fun.
You still benefit from it.
Yeah, but then if it's like fortune, if it's like fame and fun, but you don't get money,
because that fame is basically the exposure dollars.
Yeah, but then it's fun to do,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you're not going to do it if it's like there's no money and it's like shit and so I think these 2 Fs is quite a good.
So about that fame and fortune route, I guess that's the one that you consider the least, at least like for like projects or so.
The least what?
For like fame and fortune, but then there's no fun in it.
But we still do it because
you still do it.
Yeah. So basically, if it checks off 2 Fs, we'll do it.
Okay.
If it's only 1 F, like if it's only fun, or if it's only fame, or if it's fortune,
so at this point, the 3 Fs are like on equal ground right now.
Yeah. So I mean, the best is if you have 3. If you all 3, that's like the best. If not,
have you been able to strike 3 Fs before?
I think so. Like we have this upcoming one for Nike.
Okay.
So that was fun, and that was like I guess Nike was quite good exposure as well, and the money wasn't too bad. So it's like, it's good.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
But like, when you deal with clients or so, like, have you been able to kind of establish boundaries? And you were talking about like setting down black and white terms or so.
Yeah, for sure.
But this is about, the ideas in a project, or at least like the way it develops, where it might compromise your work. Like, has that happened before?
Compromise your work meaning
like if you feel like the end result is not something that you feel like you'll want to associate with the Terror Children name?
I mean, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But if we do that, and we would bring it up, but if the client insists, then sure, but we just won't show it in our portfolio then.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see.
So I think at the end of the day, it's like, I don't think you can only survive doing work that you want to do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, at least for TUIC, how we handle it is like what we present. There are a ton of work that you don't see on Instagram that is like.
So I guess that really boils down to like the way that you really establish and way you see your identity also lah. As long as your belief in your own identity is firm, then you'll be able to handle all these kind of projects.
Because there's always things like, are you selling out and stuff? But to us, we don't really believe in that. Because like, if your term of selling out means like you can be sustainable for like another year, another 2 years, like, why not, right? Like keep it going. Like that's the sustainability is the long term goal here.
We're all attempting to survive under late stage capitalism, so we do what we can.
So this purist mindset doesn't really help.
It's also very outdated.
Yeah.
So there is a saying also where it says change is the only constant. So how true is that for you as a creative?
Personally, I think it's like I thrive on change.
Okay.
I think like when something gets like a bit stale, I get a bit bored. Then when I'm bored, I lose interest really quickly.
Okay.
So I think I constantly need to be like I need to have new things. Like,
okay.
Like not material things. Okay, that material things too as well. But
new ideas as well.
New ideas, it's always about being constantly inspired, constantly like making things happen, building things. But then you run into like managing time and stuff.
Right. So we were talking about it just now, but now I can bring it up. Like, burnout. How do you avoid it?
Yeah, I think I've never gotten to and that's what Hui always wrecks me on. Like she always says I need a break, but I don't think I've ever reached that point where I'm like I give up. I think I there are some days where I definitely like a bit more lethargic than the rest. So I just take like a day to like recap. I don't know, recap, but to recover. But I'm still never off work.
Okay.
I'm still like always in the loop. I still know what's going on, but I just like I don't push myself so much.
Okay.
But then like just like maybe after the weekend, I'm back to it again.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a question right now. It's from Zach Tan, and he says, "Hey guys, as a soon-to-be fresh grad right now, when were you?" When you were starting out back then, did you have any plan B? Like, say if things didn't work out, where you were intending to work under someone?
No.
So there was no plan B.
There was no plan B. It was always like
it was just plan TYC.
Yeah, and it was like I think that worldview or that mindset really like set in when I think it was during that period where there was that whole Jiro dreams of sushi.
Yes.
And he said that thing where it's like you can't have a plan B because like then you're really planning to fail in that sense.
Right.
So I think when we watch, we're struggling with this question like should we make backup plans, and then we watch Jiro dreams of sushi and we're like, nah, like let's.
Wow. Yeah. It really seems that movie is very influential, very quietly influential, because that movie is brought up a lot when I talk to different creatives or so.
Yeah. I think it's just the whole like his whole ethos of like work, and like believing that he's doing the same thing every day. I think just inspiring in that sense.
It is, yeah. So when you established Death Threads in 2017, where were you creatively? Like, were you in search of like a different kind of fulfilling outlet for you?
Yeah. I think with TYC, what's our greatest strength and our greatest weakness is that there's four of us. There's four creative voices.
Yeah.
So on one hand, we get to do things that are like super like out of the box because there's four creative voices. But at the same time, sometimes things get a bit slow because like you want to propose a new idea and then it's like, nah, I'm not really feeling this, and you kind of like get headlocked. So I think like each of us during that period when I was doing Death Threads, we each have our individual like creative outlets. So Lydia had DHL, a Die Hard Lover. Russell had his own thing where he was selling like workwear pants and stuff like that, and I was just like selling vintage stuff. So I think we all needed that kind of like break from trying to get everyone to approve our ideas before we started it. Yeah. So and for me back then it was just like I think for me I believe in trying to, at least for myself, trying to take what I like and try to monetize it as much as possible. I know that it's like capitalism and all, but I think that's how I want to keep what I'm interested in sustainable in that sense, So
I mean, it's one thing to be a capital venture, but you're also establishing a unique identity for it. So there's a creative side to it also.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is a curation also because you're sourcing out stuff that you can't find anywhere in Singapore, at least.
So that was just my interest. It just started off as like a hobby thing, but then like we just grew and grew, and I was like, okay, let's, and then slowly I got in more people to kind of like help with the vision and it just blew up.
So this time you also found yourself like working with another group of people, and were they also having like their own individual projects or so, and then just kind of jumped in with you with Death Threads?
So I mean, like for Death Threads, so I've always said that one of my blessings, all my gifts, is that I always get to work with the right people. Yeah, I always get to work with people who are like good head on their shoulders. They're not trying to like be sus or whatever. Yeah. So with my first ever partner at Death Threads, it was as simple as me finding him on Carousel. I had no idea who he was. I just saw that his listings were like pretty much like the same vibe. Yeah. I texted him saying, hey, you know what? I just want to do like a vintage store in Singapore. You want to like come down and chat? So that's how we linked up. Yeah. And so our first ever opening, I mean, I did all the creative work. So I did the posters, I did like the marketing stuff, and then like the first ever pop-up we used is a mix of our collections. We sold like 3,000 worth. All right. And then we just took that 3,000 and like it just rolled from there. Right. So Death just says like totally it was just born from that small idea,
And now it's still you still keep it going, like even during the pandemic or so, like you guys are finding ways to do it or so. So yeah, like I guess like in a sense like the business side of you, so it's kind of nurtured over the years. Yeah. How do you not lose sight of the creative self, I guess?
I think for me what I realized is that this is my form of creativity. Okay. So it's a bit of like we're going a bit deep, but when I first started with four of us, we were all like artists. So I was also like heavily drawing, I was drawing a lot of like pen and ink, and I was actually pretty good. I would just not to toot my own horn, but I was quite known for that style. But I think like when we first started TYC, after a while, like a year or two, that I realized that that's like my output didn't feel as fulfilling anymore. Okay. Like I felt more passionate towards like meeting up with clients, brainstorming, ideating. I had no idea what an account/brand manager was. Right. So I was just like, I think just the spontaneous energy of working together. I think that keeps me like more energized. Yeah. So I had this whole like almost like creative midlife creative crisis where I was like, then what am I? Because my whole identity was on my drawing. Right. And I was like, and back then I was like, okay, I wanted to be a tattoo artist. That was like my goal in like secondary school. But then I realized, after like reading Keith Haring, so Keith Haring is a big inspiration for me because he said that, your life is your artwork. Yeah, so the people that you choose to associate with, the things you choose to do, the projects you choose to take on, you're basically creating your own artwork as your entire life.
So to tie in with like the topic that we have today, which is like finding your identity as a creative. So what you're saying as well is it's just not about finding the style that you're good at, but it's also surrounding the right people also.
It's basically your entire outlook of life, your worldview. Yeah. Like my worldview like change like over time as you mature, as new things happen. Yeah. But this is your life story. This is like the artwork in that sense. So I think like I didn't want to be, and I realized that I didn't want to be limited by just pen and ink because that can't get my message across. Like not all the things I want to do can be put across as pen and ink, but I can do like creative projects, I can make something happen, and this is all just part of the creative story. Yeah.
So solidifying your, I guess, like your creative self before handling all these different kinds of mediums, because these different mediums can be hard to tackle or even master also over years. But it sounds like you really found a way to like be confident in the area. So what advice would you give for people who are still struggling to find their creative self?
I think it's just as simple as what inspires you. Like if it's anime, if it's like cooking, if it's just double down on it. Yeah, for me, I like vintage clothing. I like hip hop. I like visual arts, and I like so many things. And I'm just like trying to focus and double down on those. So I think how you find your own, like, I think just don't be limited by what you think that like the style is, or like saying or trying to emulate what other people do. I think it's more of just like, because there's only one person that can be inspired by all the things that inspire you.
Yeah.
Like drawing, sure, there's so many people that draw.
Yeah.
But who else is it, like can draw, can like do whatever else you do? There's only you.
So I guess like in that way, it's seeing what's around you, but also seeing what's not there and how you can fill the gaps as well.
And how what interests you and what inspires you and how you can contribute like better to the world. Because when I was drawing like my pen and ink, I was drawing skulls, I was drawing roses, and I remember like one night I just told myself like, the world doesn't need another skull and roses, because on my Instagram feed there are like 5 to like 10 other
Since
artists
the 90s
doing the same thing, right? I was like, what does my contribution add to this? So I'm like, I think that kind of like helped me break free from that mindset.
Okay, so I guess for like a last question, just to wrap this up as well, like could you name like 3 artists out there in Singapore who are making outstanding work that more people should know?
I always struggle with this kind of question. Because like what I said, like I feel like I'm not inspired by like any singular person.
But if there are any artists out there who, when you look at their work, you're like, wow, this is great. Like it doesn't necessarily inspire you as an artist, but like you can see that like this is really something good.
Okay, I mean, shout out. Since I can take this time to shout out, I'll shout out like Young Raja. So Young Raja with his like social work that he's doing, like dude, that's super inspiring to me. I get super inspired by that. So Young Raja in social work, I mean like Slimy Oddity, like, just killing it as well.
Great stuff.
I don't know, I think I'm just inspired by like passion and like the hustle, like I'm watching MasterChef, like Singapore, I'm just trying to see like where I can draw inspiration from as many places as possible, not just visual arts. So I try to be inspired. I watch like Gary Vee and all these different guys. I'm like reading up on NFTs, like I'm in a new phase where I'm like into basketball cards now. It's just
just collecting like vintage basketball cards. I saw your Michael Jordan one.
I think that's gonna be my kids' education fund.
From can it last them from primary school all the way to poly?
I think so. That I'm gonna like lock in a
IT
vault or something. But
Okay. So I want to talk about hip hop as well, since you mentioned Young Raja, but I realized I didn't have time. But thank you for joining us again today.
Yes, thanks. Sorry this couldn't continue more.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like we can always like do it next time as well. Like that'll be great.
Let's do it.
Thanks for being with us for our last open talk sessions. We're having the indie rock band Subsonic Eye perform at 8 p.m. today, which is only 30 minutes from now. So stick around for that. In the meantime, we'll rewinding it back to the Last Lim Brothers travel venture. If you've never heard of them, don't switch yet, because they offer the kind of trip that no travel bubble can match up to. Next Wednesday, 24th March at 8 p.m, they'll be exploring music under the new oldies radio station, Silver 905 FM. So if you want like a little taste of like what they're doing, just stick around. See you.